It's a recording. There we go. I want to record that in case somebody else wanted to come in and said, Eric, I missed the class today. Do you have it recorded? So I will record that. Welcome there. I think we just got Larry in there. Good. All right. So here's my screen. What I wanted it to do is I'll start from beginning here so you guys can see a little bit bigger. We've been talking about buyers, sellers, and kind of working with that aspect. And now today I want to kind of dive deep and kind of talk about the tips of a perfect escrow. So those people who have had an escrow before, maybe you've had a really, really smooth one. Maybe you've had a really, scary one. And a couple of my first in 30 years recently where we're actually sitting at the signing table with a notary and the ID does not match up with the trust. And so now we're all sorts of doing some wonderful things. So there's some things that you hope that a escrow goes through nice and easy. And then there's times where you might feel that, wow, this is like, do I really want to continue doing real estate? Because that was like, I lost, a lot of sleep over that. So sometimes it could be a little bit daunting. But what I really, really like, as I told somebody the other day, is when she asked me why should I pick you and says because I can solve any problem that you have. That was pretty bold, but that's basically what we do. And I said I solve problems, but I sell real estate on the way and during the adventure because it really is. And so but that is really what we do. We solve problems. We assist people in their life, and we need to listen. And I know I did a really good listening the other day, which was quite fun. And she goes, I literally in probably 40 minutes of just her just chatting and talking and talking. And she thanked me at the very end just for listening, which was really nice. But I love this right here. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our training. So I want to congratulate you guys for being here and continuing to learn and to understand what's kind of what you need to do. But in an escrow, it really comes down to clear communication, timely communication, constant communication. Those are all important things just so everybody's on the same page, that nobody is, and that's going with everybody. As I'm thinking about this, I'm not just talking about your buyer, your seller. I'm talking about your title rep, your the lender, because there's times where I remember in the very beginning where we're out putting offers on some homes and I put an offer on something and then I forgot to send the contract to the lender for probably 4 days. So it's like, oops, the lender says, are you guys finding a house yet? Well, aren't you involved? Because you can't just assume that the buyer is going to give you their contract or contact them. So it's about having checklists. And so that's when I started getting to more systems to be able to make sure we had systems in place so we didn't have these lapses is what we want. So I use this company called Amatree. I think it's $30 a month, something of that nature. You can do a timeline on on your email if you want as well. Have you guys ever gotten an email, or do you guys actually put, and maybe some of you guys are brand new and haven't done an escrow, but have you guys actually seen where the transaction coordinator sends you over something really quick and says home inspection? Well, we got some yeses nodding, pass. So when I like to be in control, obviously, but at the same time, let's say Jessica brings me an offer and Jessica's TC sends me, the timeline, and I look at Jessica's timeline and I look at it and she goes, wow, we're 2 days apart here. Why are we 2 days off? So you need to be on the same, page. So if you get a TC sends it, my love is to like beat the other TC to the punch of says, here is our timeline, boom. So that's my goal for my transaction coordinator, my assistant, to actually hit that before the other person does, because there will be times, what's mostly important is your contingency release and your at the very end of your closing. I literally had a closing where I called this agent maybe 10 years ago and I said, hey, we're ready to close on Friday. And he says, oh, wow, I don't have our closing on until like next Tuesday. And then we calculated the days and he went, oh my gosh, I apologize. My board was wrong. And I totally should have been watching that. And my client isn't expecting to even move till next Tuesday because they got their moving trucks next Tuesday. But my people were moving on Friday because they were closing on Friday. So those things do not and cannot happen at the very end of escrow because you will, it just was ugly. And then how am I going to handle that one? So that's why it's very important for everybody to be on the same page. And it's okay to politely remind people and say, hey, Jess, just want you to know that tomorrow is your release of all contingency date, and just want to check in to see how things are coming on you guys as the buyer, because I represent the seller and want to know kind of what's going on. So, because oftentimes, I'll be straight up. There's oftentimes that would be us. That'd be the other side. That'll be a buyer, a seller, a lender. That sometimes we just kind of forget that the date goes by. I've had calls where I'm sitting there with my seller and or my buyer, and all of a sudden the other agent reaches out and says, "Hey, Eric, yesterday was their full release contingency. Where are you guys with that?" And so sometimes, we'll be straight up. Sometimes we actually are kind of pushing a few extra days because we're still trying to get something through with the lender. So maybe I don't bring it up if I'm representing the buyer, but then the agent will remind. But how many times, if it goes, and it's interesting because sometimes it go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, and then the seller or that agent finally calls me and goes, "Hey, we were supposed to release contingencies like a week and a half ago. Where are you at?" So again, it's timing. It depends on which side you actually are representing. Just to be timely as per contract and everything as well. No, tell them thank you so much. Thank you. Do you have a phone number to call, that case number?
Don't have a phone number. I just have case.
Okay, thank you. Literally, I've been on the phone with this bank since 7 o'clock this morning. And so it's been crazy trying to find the paper trail. All right. So what we've got is so I put well inspection, pest inspection. Now in Ametree, what's really nice is that you actually have it counts down the closing date for you. So when the client calls or looks in or logs in, you send an Ametree invite to everyone involved. They can accept the Ametree. It actually has a lot of my elderly people love it, younger people, but most of that, the people who watch their email the most, they really like it. But then you can add. So if all of a sudden Ben says, "Hey, Eric, this is Ben. I just want you to know that we got a or a pest inspection scheduled for April. Down. Well, probably be a bad example. How about March 2nd or something?" I say, "Great." So I can go in and put it in there. So then I will probably still text my client and just say, "Just want you to know that they're coming on a couple days from now," but I'm putting in the calendar, and so they go, "Okay, great, thank you." And then they look at the calendar and they can see it happening. But if you do this and you're working with this, you got to make sure you don't forget, because I had the seller the other day said, "Hey, the appraiser just showed up and I didn't see that in the calendar." Because I texted him and told him, but I didn't put in the calendar, and so he didn't see it in the calendar. So he's watching just the calendar because I didn't put it in. I texted, I got permission 3 days earlier. He was totally fine with it, but it wasn't the calendar, so he forgot about it. So just depends on the way they want to communicate and how they communicate. Just stick with something of this nature. I always just the expectation. I'll say, "Hey, Jess, I know that, just letting you know, congratulations, we're in escrow, but our closing date looks like May 3rd. But just want that's an estimated closing date. We are not, please don't, you can arrange to have your moving truck come and you can kind of tentatively set that up, but that date kind of moves because Ben needs to get, they need to get their loan through and their appraisal done. And sometimes there might be a couple delay, could be a delay. So that's an estimated closing date. Because I remember getting a seller super upset at me a long time ago because they said, "Hey, in my business, if I say the car is going to be done on this day, it's done." And it's like, so, but that's not kind of how real estate kind of works. So give them the expectation that this right here is a moving target. And it is a pro tip here too. If you calculate the days and it lands on a Saturday, technically it's supposed to go to Monday. And if Monday's a holiday, technically it goes to Tuesday. But I always like to reach out and say, "All right, Ben and Jess, let's talk about this. If you guys are all local and you guys are moving house and you live here local and you're going to move local, maybe you guys want to like close on Friday a day early. And then Ben, you can have Saturday to move, and then Jess, you can move in on Sunday. Is that something that you guys are okay with?" And if they say, "Yeah, we totally," and I'm taking care of this like weeks, like in the very beginning, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page when we get to the closing, and then we kind of set that up. So this is really critical of just the dates, the times, staying on top of things, because you will get, there are some agents out there that throw notices to perform a little heavy and harder at people, which if those who are new, that just means that if I'm missing some dates and Ben then sends me the notice and says, "Hey, you missed some dates. I'm giving you 48 hours to release contingencies or go away." And so that does happen. And you can, as a pro tip, if they're kind of 2 or 3 extensions and you're kind of getting a little tighter that other side, you literally can, let's say, the 2nd of March is their release, their second time we've extended their escrow or second time we've extended their release of their contingencies. I might today give them their notice to perform if my client instructs me to kick them out faster by not waiting till the first or the second of next week, and then have to wait 2 more days after we give them a notice to perform. I might give them notice to perform today, so that gives them the 48 hours. So on the time that they are supposed to be out, they're supposed to be out and or release them. So there are pro tips on that. I know I got a little on a tangent there. Just remember, there's a notice to perform and there's a notice to close. If you guys ever get to the very end of your escrow and they're not closing in a timely manner, do not give them a notice to perform. You give them a notice to close, because you don't want to cancel the escrow and be the seller canceling. And then that means that maybe the deposit gets a little bit more fishy there and a little bit more cloudy. So you want to make sure you give them a notice to close. That way that they don't close on time, then it's more of the buyer's fault and not the seller canceling escrow. Okay. So timeframes are really important. So here is this. This is goes into my drive. You guys can click on this too. Those who are new and don't have my drive, the checklist is in there. It's a very detailed checklist. I know that if you ever get an assistant that is superbly intelligent and knows the systems backwards and forwards, you can make the checklist way smaller. Because the checklist that we have in there is probably going to be a page, maybe a page and a half of just stuff, so you don't forget. That goes all the way down to picking up your lockbox, picking up your sign after close of escrow, because that happens. How many times have we forgot to pick up a sign, or having somebody else go do it? But most important things that I have on mine, on ours, is the disclosures. Where are the disclosures? Are they back yet? Did they come back yet? Because sometimes if you have one escrow, you guys will understand this. It'll be easy for you. If you have 2 or 3 or 4, that's great. When you get up to 15 or 16 escrows at the time, you'll need to have a binder every single day that you're going through, going, okay, did I do my agent visual? Nope, haven't done that one yet, and we're about to close tomorrow. That's not good, because every time we give a new disclosure to somebody, is it 3 or 5? 3 or 5 days. I think it's 3 or 4. Everybody knows that answer. Let me know. But I think it's
3 days.
3 days more that they're delaying things. So if I gave Ben a TDS at the very end of escrow, or my agent visual, they have like 3 days. They literally legally could wait and not even close escrow and say, sorry, I just got this disclosure. Now I need to spend a little bit of time. Things that kind of delay things are agent visuals, septic inspections, and getting a clear water sample are my 3 biggest ones that I see that kind of delay things. So don't expect. So again, this is setting the expectation. So if Jessica's going, they have all the disclosures, why are they not releasing it? Well, it's kind of my fault, Jess. I forgot to give them my agent visual, and now they legally have 3 more days to review my document. So watch that. Be careful with that. Make sure you're getting the natural hazard disclosure. Make sure you're getting everything. And if you have a great TC, that's what's important about having a TC, because they do this all day long. They're in the middle of 20, 30 files, and they understand that. But you still need to have, coordinate with them and walk back there, chat with them a little bit and say, okay, here we go. This is what we're doing. But I like to see, when you take a listing, I want my disclosures filled out I want to know where they're at. Did my TC have them? Did my TC send them do I have them back from the seller? Do I have them out in the MLS? Did the buyer get them back? Are they signed? And then I have, some things that, that I have right here that I can actually quickly glance in something in a folder on that. But please use the checklist. It should be a Word document, so you guys can actually, tweak it, change it on that too. And then you want to tell everyone, this is, again, your team players, the lender, the escrow officer, your everybody. And then you want to confirm and say, hey, Jess, I know we're in escrow here. Do you have a transaction coordinator? Is somebody going to be handling that for you, so I can, CC them in that too. I like to start CCing the lender and my TC in the very beginning, as I'm even sometimes doing some countering back and forth, or the last counter, or please include my transaction coordinator, Vicky, in this so she can have this information. So then they see that right away. And sometimes we are Oh, not sometimes. We're always on the move. And so sometimes I'm like on my phone going, okay, I got this document. I got to send over to Jess, but what's Jessica's TC? And then they had also had a SkySlope email in there and they also had this other email. And so sometimes I just send it directly to that person just to get it out. And I acknowledge and say, look, I'm just getting this to you really quick. I'll resend it when I get back to my office with everyone involved. But because what Jessica will say, she'll email me, goes, thank you for sending it. But please, as a reminder, please include Jessica, Kylie, and all the other people. And so I'm kind of like, okay, I'm sorry. So I always like set that expectation. Sorry, I wanted to get this to you right away, but I will send this back to your transaction coordinator here as soon as I get back to the office as well. So you give them all this, you give them all the time frames because it's nice for them to know. Because how many times have we ever asked the escrow office, and they never really forget anything. I think they're all perfect. So, but occasionally they might go, oh, or does that do, or what's, maybe they missed that there was an additional EMD, or maybe they missed that. Maybe we missed sending them the addendum saying, did you see that the deposit was increased to 20,000 and not 6,000? So, I mean, there's different things in there that you got to watch. I'm going to go on a tangent here on a pro tip on that. If you guys increase your deposit, make sure you get another it's yeah, Trina. Oh, did you already send Trina the counter offer?
Yeah, I did.
You already sent it to her
Yeah.
without me calling? Okay. Pick up the phone and tell her, sorry, Eric's in a class. I sent it, but I know he wanted to talk to you. I know you're good. Good. Sorry, we sent yesterday was super cute. There's a house, Jessica knows it's Trina Laird, and there's like a house that's it's on far, far away. It's like literally a street. So when I presented my offer and I put on a video and I actually put my phone and I actually played the far, far away theme song in the beginning. And I'm like dancing and I said, I'm presenting an offer to you today. It was really kind of fun. She loved it, but she won't like the counter offer I just gave her because we are not be able to come up to match the seller's desire. So, all right, timeline. Give them the timeline. Please let us know. Transaction coordinator, everyone else. I might have already given them. I love these what next videos. So there's videos that you can actually save. I always want to know, and I would go, Peter, are you a first-time home buyer? I'm not going to say that craziness, but as we're looking and I'm interviewing them or they're interviewing me, I'm going to make some comments like that and say that, Peter, this sounds like, is this like how many other houses have you purchased? How many have you ever sold? Oh, Eric, this is my very first house I've ever purchased. So that tells me I'm going into a first time mode where my videos, instead of being 5 minutes, they might be 15 minutes. My videos of my what's coming up next, we just got into contract. They have no idea what's next. So I have these little videos that I can send them and say, this is what's going to be happening next. Congratulations. And these videos are already pre-done. They're already set. They're done. Congratulations. And I keep them very general. Congratulations. This is where we're at. We just got acceptance on our offer. It's a buyer video. So our next steps are to order a home inspection, some inspections. Here are a couple sample inspections that we have that you can look at. Here's a couple people that you can actually call, look them up if you want. But then I set the expectation. I don't want Ben, all of a sudden, Ben goes, I got to order these inspections. And so then he all of a sudden calls me up and says, okay, I have ABC inspector coming on Tuesday, and I've got the HVAC guy coming on Thursday. And now I also set the pest guy up. He's coming on Friday. That just blew my whole schedule up. So I set the expectation, say, hey, Ben, once you know that I handle ordering these all for you, I have them so it's less inconvenient for you and the seller. I don't really say me, but I say in the seller to be able to be on like a window of time, like in one day. So we're not like interrupting everyone's schedule. So they're there. So let me set those up for you. Please review these. Let me I can, let me know who you would like to use out of these preferred vendors that I'm sharing with you. Is there a day, Ben, that you are available to be there? Because I'd love to have you come towards the very end of the inspection to walk around with the inspector. So then you can see a little bit more about what's happening versus looking at a little 2 by 1 inch picture there as well. So you're setting an expectation. And I also tell them, and by the way, if today is like Friday, it will probably be towards the end of next week or the beginning of the next, because they're generally booked up that far. So that allows me to be able to call up about a week out to say, hey, Frank, hey, this company, hey, this, are we all set? Can we do them on the same day? Because I don't really want to go 3 days, straight. I will if we need to, but I think it's just a little bit easier and it's for everyone. So next videos are great. Schedule inspections, go through the RPA denims. I kind of tell them about the dates and stuff. There we go. Oh yeah, this is a tip right here. If you guys have a well, don't set the home inspection in a well. I did this one time. Well inspector gets there, home inspectors gets there, water's off. And then the home inspector can't test the water because the water's off for 4 hours doing a well test. So that's just a tip. And home inspect and also the septic, they need to have water. So the septic needs to have water for that. So don't have a septic and a well at the same time either. All right. So, but having them all there, it's always good. I had the other day, I had three inspections happening all at the same time, which was fun because a lot of times they might be the same day, but maybe about an hour and a half difference. All right, so I want to share this. This is the most one I think that I love the most here is that don't panic your client until you have a solution prepared for them. This is going to set yourself apart. I'm not going to call up and say, Peter, we have a problem. We can't close tomorrow because this is da 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 da. So I'll get back to you. If I leave that voicemail on Peter, or if I leave that in the evening time on Peter about something, it just doesn't go really well. So I will call up and say, Peter, just want to let you know that this is what's taking place. Now, it might have been 2 days ago. It might have been, a day ago. But and sometimes you actually solve the problem and they don't even know about it. And we just move forward and they didn't even know there was a problem. But if it's something I need to communicate with them, I wait till I can find the solution. And then I call them and say, Peter, just wanted to let you know, this is where we're at. These are the 3 things that I'm working on. These are our 3 thing solutions. I feel that one of these things will actually be able to work. And so I will get back to you within the next couple hours to give you another update. But this is what's going on. Then Peter goes, fantastic. He's got it covered. That's great. He's not stressed. He's not worried. Maybe just a little bit, depends on what I tell him. And then he goes on with his day. Then I call back and say, as expected, yes, this is what we're going to do. I was able to take care of it and fix it. And the buyer's going to be doing this and he's going to do that and da da da. So we're all good to go. Thanks, Eric, for taking care of that. So again, it's something, if I need to involve them, I will bring them in, but if it's something that I can fix with their lender, something I can fix with the other agent, something I can fix with the title rep, I fix it before I even call them up. All right. So going over inspections, this is great. My first time home buyer that we're in contract with, it was 15 minutes, which I was a little bit surprised how long I took because normally it's about 7 or 8. But when you do a video, those who have not heard me before, when you do a video over your disclosures or your offer, they literally send, if they watch the video, when they don't, because they're actually calling you going, I have a question. It's like, that was in the video. I have a question. That was in the video. So I'm just kind of like, hey, hello. So I said, and I politely say, oh yeah, I mentioned that towards the end of the video. Maybe you didn't get that quite that far. Oh, let me go back and watch that. Then they call back and go, hey, that video was great. Thanks so much for explaining everything. I just signed the document. But when you go over these things that I want to go over that are important right now, what are they? Why it's going to be wire fraud, right? I don't want anybody getting stuck with wire fraud. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time under wire fraud. And I'm going to, be about a minute, when I get to that document. So my documents are all put there and I just scroll through. I have a PDF copy attached to it. I say, Jess, I've got a PDF copy attached to this. Here is this information. And I go over it. I would say, yeah, it takes me 8, 9, 10 minutes most of the time. But I will tell you that they signed the disclosures and they signed them within that day, most of the time. Within even an offer, I do it with offers, I do it with everything. They just sign them. I don't have to sit there and go, okay, are you on page 6? Because you guys know this, when they're on page 6, doesn't really mean page 6, because that's 6 now is like agencies all in front of it, and now they're really on page like 12. So, it's kind of hard to do that. Yesterday, I had a little elderly couple. I drove to their house. I left a copy on their table because I knew they were going to be gone all day, and then they were going to be coming at night and talking to me in the evening time about the offer that we received. So that way I took a copy over there, I did a video, and then they had their hard copy because of their age, but they actually watched the video. They called me up. We went on a couple of their pages since they had it in front of them. It was easier because it was, printed in front of them, and we're able to assist. So know your client, know what, and they were just so appreciative of me even dropping that off when they were gone. They were just, I guess, impressed, but that was nice. But I just want to like set the expectation to help them through the process on that. I do tell them that just understand that that sometimes the pest work, they kind of overbid that. They're not kind of in they're not really in the business of wanting to kind of do the work, so they do add a little bit monies to that as well. I talk about the home inspection. I say, look, we're not trying to rebuild the house, even though I have a particular buyer right now that is rebuilding the house, and basically the seller is complying with that because we actually we just gave them a cancellation, and they came back and says, wait, we'll do it, we'll do it. So sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I tell them this. I'll sit there and say, Jess, I want you to know on this home inspection, there's going to be a lot of stuff. This house was built in the 70s. So there's going to be a lot of things because his job is to poke and probe at every single thing. So even if he sees a scratch on the wall, he's going to mention that. But we're not rebuilding a house. We're looking for safety and health issues that maybe and perhaps the seller was not aware of, that yes, we could come back and negotiate and ask them to take care of some of those things. And oh, by the way, Jess, some of those things that we might find might be able to get fixed and repaired before close, but most likely they're just going to give you a credit to take care of those after close. I will guide you on what I feel and my pros and cons on the certain credit, because you guys all know that if you give a credit on a pest inspection, and there was a further inspection that we missed, and they open up that deck, and now there's $3,000 more worth of work. So I'm protecting my seller there, or a buyer, whoever you're protecting. Is that my phone ringing?
Oh.
So yep. So want to just protect them and understand that I don't want them to get stuck with something afterwards. So if I say, Ben, want you to know that you were going to take this credit, but if they open up this deck down here and it goes in the house, there might be a little bit more work that needs to be done. Oh, well, thanks for pointing that out, Eric. I'm good with the credit. So that way, when there is more work, Ben doesn't call me going, Eric, I got a problem. So it's like, I need more money. It's like, I kind of told you, but so I'm setting an expectation. Of course, I will send my contractors and we will help. And sometimes, literally, I had one agent years ago that would go to 2 days after they closed escrow, go over there to the house, bring their checkbook, and they say, how's everything going? Well, this wasn't working. This wasn't working. And so then this agent would just write a check and say, here, call my plumber. Here's some money, which was kind of nice. I would probably just, depending on what it is, I would call my plumber. I had somebody the other day that I checked in with them. They closed 2 months ago. Make sure you're checking with your people on a monthly basis, especially in the first 6 months. Then maybe you can go to a quarter, then go to a half a year. And if you don't see them at your customer appreciation parties, side note, Jessica Fitzu, April 1st, movies, Auburn. Okay. We're gonna, unless your kids don't want to watch Snow White, but that's might be a little bit, I don't know. You tell me what your kids, but that's our next customer appreciation event. So I invite my, vendors, I invite my, people to come to that. And if they don't show up all the time, then I want to make sure I reach out and, on that. It really gets tough when you actually have so many people in your database, and reaching out what spring boxes, what fall boxes, what gifts we actually send them, and rotating about who I haven't seen, who I have not spoken to. But if you got 5 or 6 or 10 past or clients that you've sold homes to, then it's made in the shade. But get a system in place, okay? First time home
Can I
buyers.
ask a
Oh,
question?
please,
How
please.
many sellers do you work with that will do the pest inspection ahead of the list?
All right, that's a great question. So here's where I'm at with that. If you see a massive deck, my neighbor, for instance, bad deck, I knew there was going to be major problems. We got into escrow, and it was like this $60,000 deck, dry rot, complete rebuild. I had another, and then we got an escrow. They did the inspection, came back at this hefty number. We negotiated, we closed. Another home that I had on the market for probably 8 months, I saw a lot of deck work. I said, let's go ahead and get an inspection on this, just because it'd be nice to be able to give this to the buyer, that they can see when they're coming in, and they can actually give us an offer based on this. Is kind of logical, right? But that one had like $40,000 worth of deck work. And every time I presented, I had it in the MLS as a disclosure. then people would call me up, we're getting super low offers. Then I took it out of the MLS. Then I would explain to them that we have this pest inspection, but this is what it is. Then I would send it to the agent. And it just seemed like that we were getting lower and lower and lower offers because they just weren't engaged. So my two scenarios there, the buyer got in the other one. They liked the house so much. They saw a hefty number. We negotiated because they were already deep into the escrow. They were in emotions that were in there. So that actually worked out real well. The other people, I felt that we got a much lower offer. So if it has a ton of decks, I kind of go, look, we know these decks have some issues and problems. Just be prepared, Ben, that when we get into contract and they go do the inspection, I can tell you right now that these decks are going to probably be $30,000 or $40,000. Let's save and prepare to know they're going to come back and ask for something to be repaired or fixed. Are you okay with that? Yeah, that's totally fine. We can do that. So that's kind of what I do now. If it's a concrete decks and there's concrete everywhere and I don't see anything, I'm just going to let that one fly and go. I occasionally get the older population says, hey, let's just get it done. I'll get it done for them. So that's kind of kind of how I lean on that. If I can feel it's going to be kind of nasty or not. I hope
Good.
that.
Okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but I do like if I'm like in Roseville, Rockland, where they're all stucco homes on slabs, I'm probably not doing it because you could, but it's fairly there's not a lot going on. If I walk around, I'll look at the eaves and I'll look at the door jambs in Rockland of the garage doors going out the side garage door that haven't been open forever and there's dry rot down there. I'll point it out as I'm walking through with the seller. I'll say, we should get maybe in a report. I like to try to get the septic up front. I like to try to get a well done. I don't like to get home inspections, and if I represent the seller, because if Ben comes in and buys my house and we provided a home inspection and Ben's client signs it off and Ben's super happy and they're good, and then 2 months later they move into the home and they realize that something was missed on that home inspector, they're going to point to me, they're going to point to the home inspector and say, that was your seller's home inspection and you guys missed it, so you guys are liable. If Ben got his own and that inspector missed it, we might still be slightly involved, but that's their inspector. So I always tell that to sellers if they say, can I get my home inspection so we can check off the list and stuff? Truthfully, I can go around and actually tell them, what they need to do and what they, should do, what a home inspector is going to see based on the surface, but not necessarily in an HVAC or something of that nature. So, but that's just a pro tip on that one. Okay. I do talk about, this is really critical and important here as well, that if you actually had a title rep and you know that Jessica's, I guess Jess and Jess, will call them twinners. But if Peter is like in Oregon and he's my buyer or he's my seller and they've already moved, I'm going to let Jessica's know right away that, hey, by the way, Peter actually lives in Oregon and he doesn't plan on coming down here. So don't call them. Hey, Peter, we're supposed to close tomorrow. Oh, I got to send a notary. We literally had a notary. I think you guys were involved in that, Jess, that we had 3 at the very last minute. We had like 2 siblings. The trust wasn't working well. And the one was out of state, one was a truck driver, and the other one was in Oregon in a snowstorm, and the mobile notary had to go. So that took about 2 extra days. But we had planned that, but I couldn't, where's the truck? He goes, I'll just go on 55 and I'll sit there and I'll be at this truck stop. I'm all, great. We'll send a mobile notary to that. I don't know, Jess, you remember that one? I don't know if you remember or were in the scenes, but it was kind of crazy. So that we got it done, but it did take. So I'm setting an expectation, telling the other side, hey, by the way, the seller, this is what's happening. This is where we're going. But let them know that they are going to need a mobile notary. Let them know that if they are out of country, that's really important too, because that they have to go to a notary at a U.S. embassy on that. So those are critical. If it's cash purchase, then the buyer can just sign a DocuSign, which is great. But if it's not, they need to be notarized and they'll go. Then I always let them know, says, hey, just Ben, we're going to be signing tomorrow at my office. I always like to try to attend my signings because it's important, because 2 things you can happen. You get rapport, you can ask questions, and you get a picture with them at the end in front of a beautiful Auburn courthouse out the window. So those are really important. So in a pro tip here, I will always send my seller or my buyer their net sheet or their, their estimated closing statement before signing, like a day or two beforehand. My escrow officer knows immediately that I need that. I don't have to go ask for that. If I'm unfortunately using somebody else, that because the seller said, hey, we're going to be using this person, and I have to go hunt down my statement. I don't want to hunt down my statement. I want that statement now. So train your escrow officers. Just say, I don't say train, that was a rude word. Just go in and say, hey, sweet Jess, can I please have that sweet closing statement 2 days beforehand, please? And then give them some candy and they'll love you.
Eric, I think train is exactly the right words.
Yes, well, it is, but it is because I have a lot of escrow, when Jessica, we have I love Jessica, the new escrow officer, and she'll come in and then they come to come see me and they say, all right, Eric, what can I do and what do you need to be able to make sure that my service is on point for you? I love that. Isn't that just sweet? And so they come in and we have a chat. It's okay. This is what I want. This is what I need. And I don't say it rude, but I just say, this is the things that I need. Please help me, to close this. So going over that disclosure, the closing statement with them, like literally there was we had an NID thing. There's all this extra money that was in there. And I don't want them, especially at 6 o'clock at night with a mobile notary who has no clue about what the transaction is, about monies. And all of a sudden I get a call from my seller going, Eric, what is this? What is that? What is my lender charging me? What is this here? And it's like, now it's closed. I can't get a hold of their lender. I can't get a hold of the escrow company. It's just not good. So again, it's setting expectation. I will say, Ben, I will do a video, by the way, video if you haven't noticed, and I put it on my screen and I'll go, this is what I know. This is your taxes. They're billed in the rear. This is this. Here's your transaction coordinator fee. Here's this. Here's your compensation. Here's this. And I go line by line and explain that. So I say, my portion of what on the real estate deal is complete. If you see anything else in this up above that regards to your lender, feel free to reach out to them, because I know that the mobile notary is coming tonight or tomorrow. Do it during business hours, so you will not have to be panicking, wondering, how to, get a hold of somebody. So they love that. They love when I send that over to them. It's great. So it's really critical to do. It's just so much less problems, because then I notice things. And don't forget, like, sometimes you have long escrows and you'll forget and say, oh yeah, is that $5,000 credit supposed to be there? Or, we lowered the purchase price. And because sometimes our fault is I don't send the addendum to the escrow company that we just did a price adjustment, or there's a $3,500 credit. If you wait to the very end to try to get a seller credit out of something and loan docs are already in drawing, that causes a 5 or 6 day, 3 to 4 day delay, because now all of a sudden they have to go back to the lender and the underwriter. What is this credit? And it kind of opens some questions. Well, what is this credit for? And like, so I don't want that. So it's staying all on the same page. And I'll say, hey, Jess, I just want you to know that we don't have it signed yet, but please put in your numbers. I know we're closing in 4 days, but send me a net sheet with a $4,000 credit addendum to follow, so I'm just wanting to know that. And those addendums need to say, seller credits buyer $4,000 for non-recurring and recurring closing costs. Don't put on there, for those who are new, to fix the broken heater, to fix this here, fix the dry rot. Because if you put that on there, then the lender's going to want that fixed beforehand. Pro tip, I had a buyer who started sending all the home inspections and stuff to their lender. I'm all, okay, just want you to know, when we get these home inspections, Ben, our buyer, please don't send these over to your lender. Let me handle those type of things. He goes, oh, okay, great. That's good to know, because the other first-time home buyer right now, he goes, oh, that's great to know. I was going to send all that stuff to them as well. They just don't know. They don't know. And so if it would cause problems, because then you just need to fix everything before it close. Because again, these are not brand new houses. All right. So this is like a week before close. We send out a little information about who's their internet provider, who's their cable guy, who's their trash people, so you can see I got Nevada, Placer counties here. I kind of like try if you can put different counties, because sometimes we have 2 different water agencies. So I try to say, oh, and I'll do a video, or I'll say, this one you can send this email out, but I might send something. Oh, by the way, you're in Nevada County, I don't want to send it. And sometimes they don't really know what county they're buying a house in, but maybe they do, maybe they don't. But I just want to make sure they're not calling PCWA. Then they call me back and say, Eric, they don't even have an account here. Do we even have public water at this house?
So good.
So that's good. We've had that. So I want to make sure they understand. And if I don't see their, and I'm, might just say, by the way, and if you do a recording, say, by the way, it's Comcast, you can choose and you can look, but these are your two. Here's AmeriGas's phone number right here. Or remember, it's Feral Gas. Please call them up and then get that account started. So you kind of just, help them out a little bit. And you want to do, listed other places you might want to do. Super pro tip, Amazon. Okay. And maybe my video will get taken down from YouTube because I'm calling out Amazon. I'm not calling them out. I'm giving a pro tip here. Make sure that how many times we literally had a door, we had a bathroom vanity delivered to a house that they sold because they forgot to change their address, that it was around across the town. So just say, just don't forget, and maybe I should add that in. Let Amazon know that you and they laugh, they chuckle. Let Amazon know that you've moved, so all these packages don't end up showing up at the other house. Because there's been a couple times where it's like, can I come get that? Well, my client kind of liked it. They thought it was a closing gift. So I don't, I need to go get that. So, and then I just shipped a bunch of stuff to back east, and my client didn't even offer to pay for it, but I took care of it. So that's nice. But things that they accidentally left, in the home and upper closets and stuff. So more tips if contingent upon sale, multiple houses closing. This is super critical. I've got one right now that we're probably 3 deep. You want to make sure that you allow people to move. So if Ben, Peter, and Jessica were all in escrow, we're all here in town in Auburn, and everybody was moving across town, and we were all supposed to close. We're doing a concurrent close on the March 1st with 2 houses, and then we're supposed to close on the 2nd. How is everybody going to move in 3 days? Not going to happen. And again, I'm only telling you this because I've had problems. I've had issues in yelling people because, like, Eric, I can't move my truck. There's 2 trucks in the driveway. What am I going to do? Pods being delivered, and they all of a sudden put it right in front of the driveway. Now the moving truck can't even get around the truck or get the pod to even actually unload their stuff. So this is all stuff of setting expectations, of knowing where's coming and who's coming, and where, I've gone out to a house and said, if you want your pod to come here, but most of the time on those is because it's a rent back, is just, on that, and I stick a flag. This is where the seller and I want you to put, or a cone, put your pod right here. You were welcome to allow you to put your pod here because they need to put it down somewhere. So put it right here. We've given the location on that. So it's just important because 15 years ago, they stuck it right in front of the driveway. And I said, yeah, the seller said that's fine. Seller wasn't home. They stuck both of them, boom, right in front of the garage. It was bad. I don't know if she likes me to this day, but anyway, so that's where we're at. Call agents in front to the transaction a week, So what I mean by this, let me go back up to the top. Just put on there, buyer to remain in possession of the property, as an option up to 2 days. Put that in free of charge. Just put those in so you actually have that time. Ask your lender to give you weekly updates, so you can actually let them know. Going to the closing table with your client, we talked about that. Notice to perform, notice to close, we talked about that. Wow, look at this. I got all that early. All right, buyer walkthrough rules, ins and outs. Can a buyer hold up escrow if an item's found in a walkthrough? What's your answer to that? You go to a walkthrough and all of a sudden they move the dresser and there's a giant hole in the wall. You want that hole fixed. What's your answer to that? Can they hold up escrow?
Yes.
They can?
Might not be legally, but they will drag their feet.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. So I would push it as hard as you can and say, look, we're not wiring funds until that hole gets taken care of, or unless you give us some type of credit for it. When we went to Sierra Legal a long time ago, and they basically said, no, it's actually, if you're holding up escrow, that you're in breach of contract, the buyer is. So it was interesting on that walkthrough. I didn't like that answer, but it was kind of true. So those are a little tough on those. There's a situation we're having right now that somebody says, why don't you go ahead and, the seller's super grateful and thanks for the offer. And the seller's going to go ahead and leave a lot of miscellaneous things around, some furniture pieces around. And this buyer goes, oh, we love all your stuff. Yes, we want the house so good. It's 3 weeks before it closed. We just want it. We want it. We want it. And then they get in there and all of a sudden they close escrow and they go, why did the seller leave all this trash? Well, you said we could leave anything that we wanted. So be very careful with the choice of words that you actually say. There's just stuff around the ranch, that things you're going to need. Well, I don't want 55 railroad ties and a big pile over there. So, I mean, there's things that just set expectation. So yes, you can push a little bit. This is where sometimes agents come in and, be the saving the day. I'm very clear when I put and give something, like we're at the closing table and I paid for the well test or something. And if I'm on my video or closing table, I'm going, hey, this is the well test that I paid for you. Slow your speech down. Just as a thank you, by the way. Is this and I want them to go, oh, thank you, Eric, so much. I want them to acknowledge those things. Or if all of a sudden I'm giving a credit to make the deal work, or I'm actually doing a reduction of compensation, I want them to say, oh, this is the, instead of saying, here's the compensation, I might say, here's the reduction of compensation that we negotiated for in your behalf. And they might go, oh, well, that's so kind of you. I don't say in a condescending, rude way, but I want them, they need to know that happens. Yeah, here's an agent visual. Oh, we didn't even sell this house. Unfortunately, she lost it in foreclosure, which was kind of sad. It was a mobile home that we had, and it was kind of sad how the situation went. But she was gifted this house, but she never was legally gifted. It wasn't hers to give. It was just it was basically, it was kind of crazy. But here, that was a total off target. But here's an Avid. What do you say about this? Do you go in and can you be super specific? I got called out by an agent that I don't think she works anymore, but she was an elderly agent. She was totally on target because I would say the trim needs to be painted. And she goes, Eric, you can't really say that. You can't say, well, the trim has dry rot. I'm not an expert, or this appears to be mold in the bathroom. So you want to be kind of careful what you say in regards to this. You wouldn't say, I would say the kitchen is being remodeled. Kitchen cabinets are not on. Wires are hanging from the ceiling. Dishwasher and appliances aren't connected. That's probably what I would say. Floor not there. But this is a kind of a crazy example of what this is. But you can't say things. So if I might say now on the trim, I might say the trim on the exterior shows damage and shows wear. Because I'm just pointing it out, but I'm not calling it out because I'm out of my expertise. So when you're walking through a house on an agent visual, some of those we had one the other day. I've never had how like on the TDS, you guys can get the overflow addendum. Well, I got an overflow addendum for the agent visual. I'm like, wow, that's pretty detailed, on that. So you got to find something just so the court of law knows that you actually were in the house. But I think yesterday's one up in Nevada, up in the pre-open that we're going to have coming your way, Jess, got an offer on it yesterday. Pro tip, or not, that's just a Old Republic tip, not a pro tip, but it's all good. That one actually, what did we put on there? 3 things. I said the front step shows a little bit of wear on the ironwood, and there's a little small settling crack in the ceiling. And did I find anything else? Some houses are just, so I put nothing noted, or I might put bathroom has a shower and a separate tub, just so they know that I was in the room. But I mean, when you have an ideal house like that, you don't. But when and I've had sellers who put maybe a little bit too much on their information, and it kind of scares when you have like 5 pages of an overflow on a TDS. It scares buyers. So I kind of say, look, I want you to put more is better, but when you say that you had I don't know, just it was some weird thing, I thought that may not really pertain to that it snows here every once in a while. We get a ½ inch of snow. Maybe that doesn't necessarily need to be on your TDS, but yeah, they would do things like that. So anyway, there's that all in with Eric Hatch. I think you already got the picture on that. You can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want. And that's pretty, I love Zig Ziglar. I was probably a young father of in kindergarten, and they had a book sale out there on the playground, and the red book that I picked up was Ziglar, and had no idea who he was. And I love that book. I quote that book all the time. It's a wonderful book. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, and you are a leader. So that's what you want to be as well. All right, guys, that is the presentation for today. So I'm going to open that up. Let me pause this.